No one ever tells you when it happens. There's no signal, no confrontation, no moment you can point to. 1 second you're part of the room, the next you're already written off. You feel it when you walk in, and conversations don't stop. But they don't include you either. When your presence changes nothing. When your words land, not wrong, just irrelevant. You watch your idea get ignored in real time, then resurrected by someone else and praised like it was never yours. That's when the knot forms in your stomach, because you realize this isn't about intelligence or effort. It's something else. Then think about opportunity. The emails that never get answered. The promotions that go to people you quietly outperform. The interviews where everything seems fine, polite smiles, professional tone, and then nothing. No explanation. Just silence. Same resume. Same skills. Same you. Until one day, almost by accident, you show up differently. Cleaner, slower, more contained. You say less. You move with less urgency. And suddenly people pay attention. They listen. They follow up. They treat you like a factor. That moment is disturbing, and because it exposes the lie you were raised on. That hard work speaks for itself. It doesn't. The world speaks over it. This is why it hurts in a way you can't explain to anyone. Because nothing is technically wrong, yet everything is working against you. You don't feel attacked. You feel erased. And erasure is the cruelest outcome because it gives you nothing to fight. Here is the truth most people never face. You are being evaluated before you ever open your mouth. Before logic. Before fairness. Before merit. And once that silent verdict is reached, every interaction bends to confirm it. If you've ever felt invisible in a room where you knew you had value, don't justify it. Don't explain it. Just comment "seen." Before anything else makes sense, the frame has to change. Niccolo Machiavelli did not study power as a moral ideal or a motivational concept. He studied it as a force that moves whether you agree with it or not. He watched how people rise, how they fall, and why competence alone rarely protects anyone. His insight was simple and uncomfortable. The world does not wait to understand you. It decides first, then justifies later. This video is not here to teach you how to get rich, project false confidence, or perform status for attention. Its purpose is far more practical. To explain why some people are treated as background noise despite their ability, and how to stop being assigned that role before you ever open your mouth. Machiavelli understood that power is not earned in conversation, it is assumed through signals. Once those signals are set, every word you say is weighed accordingly. Strong ideas sound weak from the wrong frame. Capable people look expendable when their presence says otherwise. The goal here is to make that invisible process visible, and then show you how to correct it. Not by becoming someone else, but by removing the signals that work against you. This is not about deception. It is about refusing to sabotage yourself unknowingly. The world does not reward who you are. It rewards what you signal. When that finally clicks, effort stops leaking and outcomes begin to change. The mistake most people make is believing that poverty is a temporary phase that money will eventually erase. That once the bank account grows, respect will follow automatically. But what actually blocks you has very little to do with numbers. Being perceived as poor is not about income. It's about weakness being legible. It's about the signals your body sends before your mouth ever opens. The slight hesitation when you enter a room. The way your shoulders cave inward instead of holding space. The habit of softening your voice, adding unnecessary explanations, apologizing preemptively so no one feels uncomfortable around you. These behaviors feel harmless, even polite. But to the outside world, they read as vulnerability. And vulnerability is expensive. It gets you negotiated down. It gets your time consumed without respect. It gets you labeled as someone who needs help instead of someone who offers value. This is why capable people end up underpaid and overused. Not because they lack skill, but because they signal compliance before any deal is made. Picture two men asking for the same loan on the same day. One walks in scanning the room nervously, sitting too quickly, speaking fast, trying to sound grateful before anything is offered. The other enters unhurried, posture relaxed, tone steady, asking questions instead of pleading. Internally, both need the money. Externally, only one looks like he does. The first is treated as a risk, the second as a negotiation partner. Terms shift, attitudes soften, doors open. Nothing about the math changed, only the signal did. This is the painful truth most people resist. The world does not punish you for lacking resources. It punishes you for advertising need. Need makes people cautious, predatory, or dismissive. Choice makes them cooperative. Until you understand that, you will keep waiting for money to save you, while your behavior quietly pushes opportunity away. Poverty survives not in your wallet, but in the cues you send that say, without words, that you can be pressured, rushed, or ignored. What's happening to you feels personal, but it isn't. It's mechanical. The human brain is not designed to investigate depth. It's designed to survive by deciding quickly. To do that, it relies on shortcuts. Instead of asking who you are, it asks what you look like, how you move, and whether you appear managed or chaotic. Those surface cues become stand-ins for deeper traits. Competence gets replaced by composure. Discipline gets replaced by order. Trust gets replaced by control. This process is not fair, but it is brutally efficient. When someone walks in wearing wrinkled clothes, carrying themselves loosely, looking slightly disorganized, the brain doesn't wait for context. It draws a conclusion. Lack of order becomes lack of discipline. Lack of discipline becomes lack of reliability. No one consciously thinks, this person is lesser. They simply feel hesitation. They assign less responsibility. They move on. You've done this yourself without noticing. You see someone who looks unmanaged, and you instinctively lower expectations, not out of malice, but out of efficiency. That same filter is being applied to you repeatedly every day. This is why hard work alone feels invisible. The verdict is often reached before effort enters the room. Once you understand that, something important shifts. You stop internalizing the outcome. You stop assuming something is wrong with you. You realize you're not failing as a person. You're being sorted by a fast system that only reads signals. And anything that can be read can be redesigned. The idea that ruins more capable people than failure ever could sounds harmless at first. I don't care what people think. It feels like strength, like freedom, like honesty. But that belief only works after you have leverage. Before that, it works against you. There are two kinds of authenticity, and confusing them quietly kills momentum. Authenticity with power reads as confidence, because your position carries weight. Authenticity without power reads as carelessness, because nothing is buffering the consequences. When you haven't earned authority yet, being relaxed does not look secure, it looks unserious. Being easy to work with does not look strong, it looks easy to use. The world doesn't interpret behavior the way you intend, it interprets it based on rank. This is why people who pride themselves on being comfortable and laid back often end up doing more and getting less. Think about the employee who shrugs off criticism with, "I'm just being myself." He keeps things casual when the room gets tense. He jokes to lower the temperature, He dresses like the stakes don't apply to him. Inside, he believes he's showing confidence. Outside, he's being sordid. Not aggressive enough to challenge, not sharp enough to promote. No one says he's bad. They simply stop betting on him. That's the danger. Comfort without position doesn't protect you, it exposes you. The same behavior that looks confident on someone established looks sloppy on someone still rising. This is where most people get trapped. They think authenticity is the goal, when timing is the real skill. You don't reject perception before you control it. You earn the right to ignore opinions after you're taken seriously, not before. Until then, every signal matters. This isn't about being fake. It's about not sabotaging yourself under the banner of honesty. So pause and answer honestly, not emotionally. Which were you taught to chase, comfort or respect? Comment comfort if you were raised to be liked. Comment respect if you're ready to be taken seriously. Most people choose comfort without realizing it, and that choice explains everything that follows. Before fixing anything else, you need a map. Not inspiration, not confidence, not another promise to work harder. What follows are 4 practical moves that change how you are read before you ever speak. Each one targets a different signal the world uses to rank you. How you look, how you move, how you speak, and who you are seen with. None require money. None require permission. They work because they remove the excuses people use to dismiss you. This is not self-improvement. It is damage control. Apply these 4 shifts and resistance drops fast without warning or apology. The first method is the fastest to apply and the hardest to respect, which is why most people skip it and stay stuck. Before confidence, before presence, before anything psychological, you have to eliminate the signals that quietly mark you as low value. This method is not about looking rich, fashionable, or impressive. It is about looking intact. The rule is simple and unforgiving. Clean, orderly, put together. That's it. The human brain reads these 3 signals as proof of control. And control is what separates someone who gets negotiated down from someone who gets listened to. When those signals are missing, people don't wonder what you're capable of. They assume the limit. A wrinkled shirt doesn't suggest limited money. It suggests limited standards. Dirty shoes don't communicate hustle. They communicate tolerance for disorder. A cracked phone screen doesn't say bad luck. It says you live with broken things. And people treat you the way you treat your environment. This is why a $20 shirt that's clean, pressed, and properly fitted will outperform a $1,000 jacket that looks neglected every single time. Price never speaks louder than maintenance. Maintenance signals self-command. Look at the difference between someone who fixes small problems immediately and someone who adapts to them. One replaces worn laces, irons clothes, repairs a cracked screen, cleans their workspace, and refuses to normalize dysfunction. The other shrugs and says it still works. That phrase quietly destroys leverage. Still works tells your nervous system that disorder is acceptable, and tells everyone watching that you will tolerate less. Over time, this compounds. People push deadlines onto you. They interrupt you. They offer lower numbers. They assume you'll bend. Not because they dislike you, but because your signals say you will. Pay attention to what happens internally when you clean this up. When your clothes are sharp, your posture lifts. When your space is orderly, your thoughts slow down. When broken things are fixed, your voice steadies. You stop apologizing without realizing you were doing it. This isn't motivation, it's feedback. Order on the outside creates authority on the inside, and authority leaks outward. This is why people who clean themselves up often notice a shift before results change. They didn't get smarter overnight. They removed reasons for doubt. Decision makers don't analyze deeply. They scan. When choosing between two similar people, they pick the one who looks easier to justify, easier to defend, easier to explain if something goes wrong. Appearance becomes insurance. That's the game whether you like it or not. This is why surface discipline is not vanity. It's strategy. You are not pretending to be more than you are. You are preventing the world from assuming you are less. Every repaired detail sends the same message without words. I handle my life. I don't leak chaos. I don't live in disrepair. That message buys you hesitation from predators and patience from allies. You don't need to look wealthy. You need to look intact. And in a world that judges before it listens, intact is the first form of power. The second method shifts everything without saying a word, because the body communicates rank faster than language ever could. Before anyone listens to what you think, they feel how you move. This is where most people lose power without realizing it. They speak well, think clearly, but their body is broadcasting urgency, permission, and apology all at once. Start with pace. The way you walk through a space sets the frame. Fast steps, rushed turns, constant adjustments tell the room you are reacting to time, not controlling it. Reaction reads as lower status. The person who walks slightly slower than necessary, who doesn't rush to claim a seat, who lets a moment pass before moving, signals something else entirely. He looks like time waits for him. That calm changes how people position themselves around him. Next is posture. Slumped shoulders, forward head, compressed chest are not neutral habits. They are signals of retreat. They say you are minimizing your footprint to avoid friction. Power posture is not aggressive or rigid. It is vertical ease. Spine tall, shoulders relaxed, weight evenly grounded. It looks like comfort with being seen. That comfort unsettles people who are used to scanning for weakness. Eye contact completes the message. Breaking it early, glancing away mid-thought, or letting your eyes dart while someone speaks makes you look unsure even when you are right. Holding eye contact calmly, without staring, without smiling to soften it, shifts the balance. It places attention on the other person. They become self-aware. They start choosing their words more carefully. This is not intimidation. It is presence. Then there is silence. Most people talk too much because their body is anxious. They fill space to prove they belong. They explain, qualify, joke, and dilute their own point. The man who speaks less is often heard more because his stillness carries weight. He states what he needs to say and stops. The pause that follows forces the room to process instead of interrupt. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is authority that doesn't beg. Now notice the habit that ruins all of this instantly. Apologizing for existing. Saying sorry for asking. Sorry for taking time. Sorry for disagreeing. These apologies are not manners. They are submissions. Each one teaches people to expect less resistance from you. The moment you remove unnecessary apologies, interactions tighten. People listen closer. They choose words instead of steamrolling. Think about the difference between two people in a meeting. One leans forward, speaks quickly, nods constantly, laughs to ease tension, and jumps in too soon. The other sits back, listens fully, speaks once, then waits. The room orients toward the second person almost automatically. Not because he dominates, but because he doesn't chase attention. His body says he doesn't need permission to be there. This is why body control works so fast. It bypasses argument. No one debates posture. No one challenges calm. They feel it and adapt. When your movement slows, others slow down. When your body stops apologizing, others stop assuming you are wrong. When your presence becomes steady, your words gain gravity without extra effort. You don't need to become louder or harsher. You need to become harder to rush, harder to ignore, harder to push. Control the body and the room adjusts itself around you, because power is not announced, it is felt first. The third method works by reversing a habit most people never question, the belief that being heard requires saying more. In reality, the opposite is true. In any social environment, value is attached to scarcity, and words are no exception. When you speak constantly, clarify everything, and rush to fill every pause, you teach others that your words are abundant and therefore disposable. Silence disrupts that pattern. Silence forces attention. When you don't immediately explain yourself, people begin to speculate, and speculation almost always inflates perceived importance. This is why the person who speaks briefly and stops often controls the room without trying. They are not competing for space. They are occupying it. Compare two familiar figures. The first talks openly about his problems. He shares how stressed he is, how unfair his job feels, how money is tight, how tired he is of trying. He believes honesty builds connection. What it actually builds is a profile of weakness. Every complaint signals pressure. Every explanation signals need. Over time, people don't see depth. They see burden. They listen politely, then keep distance. Opportunities drift elsewhere. Now look at the second person. When asked how things are going, he answers plainly. When challenged, he responds once, then goes quiet. He doesn't narrate his stress or justify his decisions. If something goes wrong, he acknowledges it briefly and moves forward. There is no drama to grab onto, no emotional leverage to exploit. People around him begin to assume competence without proof. Not because he's superior, but because he hasn't given them reasons to doubt. The human brain fills silence instinctively, and it usually fills it in favor of whoever seems least desperate. This is where many people unknowingly lose power. They mistake early transparency for trust. They reveal fear, urgency, financial strain, or emotional instability before it's safe to do so. That information doesn't make others compassionate. It makes them cautious or predatory. Negotiations harden. Respect thins. Silence is not lying. It's sequencing. You don't hide forever. You withhold until position is secured. Notice how people with authority speak. They pause before answering. They don't rush to soften statements. They let silence sit without rescuing it. That pause changes the rhythm of the interaction. Others slow down. They choose words more carefully. A single sentence delivered calmly carries more weight than a paragraph padded with justification. This is why the person who explains the least is often the hardest to pressure. You can't rush them into concessions. You can't easily read their limits. Their restraint creates uncertainty, and uncertainty creates respect. Meanwhile, the person who fills every gap becomes predictable. Predictability invites manipulation. This doesn't mean becoming cold or withdrawn. It means recognizing that every word either strengthens your position or weakens it. Most people talk to relieve their own anxiety, not to move the situation forward. When you stop doing that, everything shifts. People stop treating you like a problem to manage and start treating you like a variable to consider. When you stop advertising your pain, others stop defining you by it. When you stop explaining your value, people start assuming it exists. Silence, used deliberately, doesn't erase you. It concentrates you. And in a world that measures importance before substance, concentration is power. The fourth method operates quietly, but its impact is constant. Because long before anyone evaluates your skills or listens to your ideas, they notice the company you keep. Human judgment is lazy by design. Instead of assessing everyone individually, the mind uses association as a shortcut. Traits bleed across groups. Ambition transfers, defeat transfers, discipline transfers. This is the halo effect spreading without asking your permission. Most people misunderstand this and turn it into a moral issue, thinking it means cutting people off or betraying their past. That's not what this is. The real mistake is mixing contexts that should never overlap. You don't need to abandon old friends. You need to stop letting every room define you the same way. Think about how different environments change your behavior without effort. Sit with a group that spends hours venting about work, joking about being stuck, blaming the system, and turning every serious thought into sarcasm, and watch what happens. Your energy drops. Your language softens. Your ambition shrinks to fit the room. Even if you say very little, you are still being read through the group's tone. To outsiders, you look aligned. Now place the same person in a room where the conversation is quieter but sharper. Less complaining, more planning, fewer excuses, more decisions. Suddenly, he speaks less, listens more, and when he does talk, people lean in. Same man, same personality, different signal. Nothing about his competence changed. The frame around him did. This is why context is leverage. People don't ask whether you're different from the group you're with. They assume similarity and move on. That assumption shapes how seriously you're taken, how much patience you're given, and how much risk others are willing to take on you. This is where most people sabotage themselves out of loyalty without realizing it. They bring strategic conversations to emotional rooms. They bring ambition into spaces built for comfort. They expect growth-minded behavior from people committed to staying the same. Then they wonder why they feel drained, doubted, or dismissed. Intelligence is knowing where each version of you belongs. You don't discuss vision with people who only process frustration. You don't workshop plans with people who mock effort. You don't expose momentum to rooms that survive on stagnation. That's not arrogance. That's containment. Picture 2 evenings from the same week. One night, you're surrounded by people reliving the same problems, telling the same stories, laughing at the same dead ends. You leave feeling heavier. Another night, you're with people asking better questions, sharing moves they've made, talking about what's next instead of what went wrong. You leave energized without anyone motivating you. The difference wasn't inspiration, it was environment. This is why successful people guard rooms more than relationships. They understand that credibility is contagious. When you're seen consistently with people who are building, you borrow their seriousness. When you're seen with people who are drifting, you inherit their drag. You don't announce this shift. You don't explain it. You simply become selective. Certain conversations move to certain places. Certain people stay in certain lanes. Over time, this selectivity itself becomes a signal. It tells the world you are deliberate, not available to everything. Most people let their environment choose them by default. Those who rise choose environments that reinforce who they are becoming. This method works because it removes friction before it appears. Decision makers feel safer associating you with opportunity when your visible circle reflects direction instead of decay. You don't have to become colder. You just stop letting random proximity define your identity. And slowly, without confrontation or drama, the way people respond to you shifts. Because the signal traveling ahead of you finally matches the future you're trying to build. What you're seeing now is not motivation. It's mechanics. Real change doesn't begin with belief. It begins with action that feels slightly unnatural at first. Most people wait for confidence to arrive before they move differently. and that delay keeps them trapped. The sequence is always the same. Behavior shifts first. The world reacts second. Identity updates last. When you adjust how you show up, how you move, how you speak, and what you tolerate, people start treating you differently before you've fully caught up internally. Conversations slow down. Interruptions drop. Negotiations feel less one-sided. You notice hesitation where there used to be pressure. That external feedback becomes proof, and proof is what rewires you. Not affirmations, not mindset talk, experience. This is where the mask does its real work. The mask is not deception. It's a temporary structure that allows a new self to form. When you act with control before you feel it, the nervous system adapts to the new standard. You begin trusting yourself because the environment confirms it. You stop explaining because no one demands explanations anymore. You stop shrinking because there is nothing pushing you back. The version of you that once waited for permission quietly dissolves. People around you notice and say you've changed, but what they're reacting to is consistency. You're no longer sending mixed signals. You're no longer asking to be taken seriously while behaving like you expect to be dismissed. The world responds to clarity. Once your signals align, friction drops. This is why transformation looks sudden from the outside. Internally, it feels inevitable. You start walking away from bad deals without drama. You stop chasing validation you no longer need. You feel less emotional turbulence because you're no longer negotiating your value in real time. The mask becomes unnecessary because the face has caught up. This is the uncomfortable truth behind every durable shift. You don't wait to feel powerful. You behave powerful until it becomes real. Most people will hear this and retreat back to comfort because comfort feels safe, even when it's costing them respect daily. But if you understand what actually changes your life, comment, "I control the signal." If you're done being misjudged and minimized, comment, "No more poor signals." And if you already know most people won't act on this, but you will, comment, "Architect." What remains now is not a promise, but a line you either cross or keep circling. This was never about becoming rich, admired, or untouchable, because chasing those outcomes keeps you dependent on things you can't control. The real offer is narrower and more honest. You stop being treated as someone disposable. You stop being overlooked, talked over, negotiated down, or quietly dismissed. That shift alone rewires how your life unfolds. When disrespect disappears, opportunity finally has space to move. The world is not cruel or kind, it is efficient. It reacts to what it can read fast and defend later. When your signals change, the resistance you've been fighting for years fades without confrontation. People pause before pushing you. They listen longer. They explain themselves instead of assuming you will bend. That pause is power. This path is uncomfortable because it demands precision where comfort used to live. It asks you to let go of the belief that effort should speak for itself and accept that perception speaks first, whether you agree or not. Most people refuse this because it feels unfair, and then they spend years paying the cost of being misread. You don't need to announce a transformation. You don't need approval. Let the change register before it is understood. When signals align, people adjust automatically. From this point on, you are making a quiet decision every day. Either you keep absorbing the invisible tax of being underestimated, or you remove it deliberately and move forward lighter. There is no middle ground that works. The world is judging you anyway. You might as well control the verdict. If this reframed how you see your position, stay close. Subscribe, not for hype, but for clarity that compounds. And if you already sense there are deeper layers that don't belong in the open, they exist for those willing to go further. Most people won't do this. That's why it works.